When talking about Sonic games, the Boost games are usually considered to be a pretty mixed bag. On one hand, you have some of the best games in the series, and on the other, you have this. So today I want to look at what I consider to be the worst of the Boost formula games to see which one is truly the worst of them all. I've been pretty critical in the past of both Sonic Colors and Sonic Forces. If you've been around on the channel for a while, you've definitely heard me complain about Sonic Colors a few times, or maybe even watched my video on Sonic Forces. Don't watch my video on Sonic Forces.
And there was also a free Shadow DLC that gave you 3 new levels to play, and let you play as Shadow.
Now, for some reason, after disliking these games for some time now, I have felt the want to replay and talk about them once more. Why is that? I don't know, the character creator is kind of funny. In the past, I played both of these games on Switch, but for the purpose of this video, we will be playing them on PlayStation for a better experience. I know that Sonic Colors Ultimate doesn't have the greatest reputation, but I didn't have many problems with it this time around and would probably consider it the best way to play the game. So unlike the classic games, the Boost games don't really require you to build up momentum to gain speed. Instead, you just press a button to perform a boost, which uses up your boost meter. Now, if the levels are designed poorly, it can make the boost formula feel super boring and way too straightforward. But if designed well, the levels can feel extremely satisfying and fun to replay. So now we are going to see how both of these games handle their levels and see which one offers the better experience. Sonic Colors opens up with a pretty good start. Tropical Resort Act 1, in my opinion, acts as a great first level. It introduces you to the main mechanics of the game while still offering a fun level with collectibles to go for. To be honest, the rest of Tropical Resort isn't all that bad, but there are definitely some levels that aren't nearly as good as others, and these sort of act as a sign of what the rest of the game is going to look like. So before we move on, I think it's important to point something out. Every world in this game has 6 acts or levels. Now, to some, that may not sound like much, but trust me when I say that is a very large number for a Sonic game, especially when you're only playing as Sonic. This is because I guess they thought that there weren't enough levels in the game, which caused them to make some interesting decisions. What they did was split some of the levels in 2, which is very obvious when you look at how some levels end with what still seems to be some level left after the goal ring. This isn't even the last time Sonic Team would do this. In Sonic Frontiers, they took the original first island and then split it into 3 islands so that they could pad out the game. And then on top of this, they went ahead and made a bunch of very gimmicky 2D stages that mostly just reuse sections from other levels. This is what ultimately leaves us with so many stages that I feel are extremely underwhelming and annoying to complete. Look at this level. This is all you do for like 3 minutes. The big problem with this is that when you encounter stages that just aren't that great to begin with, the game just drags them out for way longer than they really need to be, and in some cases can even drag down areas that would have been better without all of the extra fluff. I found the first 2 acts of Asteroid Coaster to be really fun, but the moment you go into the later acts, it just drops off so hard. This level is quite literally just a circle that you run around on. I thought I was doing something wrong, or that maybe the game didn't load in some spring that was supposed to be there, but no, this is the whole level. And while most of the stages aren't as bad as that, they can still be pretty rough. Some of them just have these weird floating boxes that just look so out of place, especially since the rest of the game can actually look pretty nice. And of course we have the main gimmick of the game, the wisps. I think that these can make the game pretty fun if they are used well. The laser, frenzy, and drill abilities are all pretty fun in my opinion. They are able to keep you moving without disturbing the flow of the game. But then we have the wisps that almost feel like a downgrade whenever you use them. Cube is a cool idea, but the problem is that it just takes so long to use that I usually try to avoid it unless it is necessary. In my opinion, the worst of the wisps definitely has to be hover. I don't even really think I need to explain it. You can probably see the problem yourself. I just think what sucks the most about this all is that there really are some good levels hidden in here, but you just have to dig through so much crap to get to them. This is why I will still say to this day that the DS version of Sonic Colors is the best version of the game. There are no crappy filler stages, just pure Sonic fun, which is what the console version should have been. Overall, I left Sonic Colors feeling pretty mixed on the level design, but now it's time to see if Sonic Forces handles it any better. One thing that is immediately noticeable is that unlike Sonic Colors, which only had Sonic playable, we now have 3 different playable characters with Sonic, Classic Sonic, and your own custom avatar. And what's really cool about the avatar is that they are completely customizable, which means that you can make stuff nobody has seen before. So starting with the modern Sonic levels, these are sort of similar to the levels in Sonic Colors. A majority of your time is spent in 2D sections in these levels, which is fine, but Sonic just doesn't feel nearly as good to control in 2D compared to 3D. It was kind of like this in Sonic Colors, but just not to the extent that it is in this game. One problem I have with some of these levels is that when they do go 3D, they are just straight lines forward where all you have to do is boost. I'm all for having sections where you can go faster, but this just feels really lazy. In games like Generations, you're practically boosting for the whole level, but you still need to react to things and actually think. In Forces, you're either doing extremely mediocre 2D platforming or just holding down the boost button. Even though the modern Sonic levels aren't great in this game, they are still probably the best part, yet they only take up like 1/3 of the game. Yeah, it's all downhill from here. Next up, we have the Avatar. They are like Sonic, except they have a Wispin instead of a boost. So the Wispins are basically another part of your character that you can customize, and they give you different abilities based on the one you use. They all have a normal attack you can use whenever, and a special ability you can only use by finding the Wisp that goes with the Wispin. Now, on paper, this is cool because it gives you more reasons to replay the levels by using the Wispins to find more secrets. But also, I do find it kind of annoying that there isn't really any sort of way to know what Wispin you would want to use for a specific level until after you beat it. In Sonic Colors, it was just all about using the Wisp they gave you in the right place. But here you have to equip the right Wispin for the right level. But I did find that I would end up having more fun with the Avatar levels the more I experimented with the different Wispins to see all of their advantages and disadvantages. The one I used for pretty much the entirety of my initial playthrough was the Electric Whip. It has a fairly quick attack and allows you to light speed dash. But I found myself enjoying other Wispins like Hover that actually had a pretty fun feeling flying ability. But back to the levels themselves, yeah, they aren't that good. They have a lot of the same problems as the modern Sonic levels, except I find the Avatar even less fun to control, so I just don't really enjoy them as much. Even after experimenting with the different Wispins, the stages were enjoyable, but didn't offer enough for me to consistently want to go back. Also, if you do play this game, make your avatar a bird because they are objectively the best with the double jump. I made mine a hedgehog as a joke because I thought it would be funny if I just made Sonic, and I ended up having a much more frustrating time. There are also levels where you play as both modern Sonic and the Avatar. It's basically just modern Sonic with a Wispin. These levels are actually pretty decent, and surprisingly, most of these levels don't have any 2D sections, and if they do, they don't last long. There aren't many of these stages in the game, which I think is a huge shame because they are probably some of my favorites. While the last two characters weren't great, our final playable character is where things get really, really bad. Classic Sonic is an abomination in this game. His levels are not fun, he is not fun, nobody knows why he is here. It is insane to me how bad they messed up the classic levels. Like, he was fine in Generations. Not amazing, but fine. All they really needed to do is just copy and paste that code into this game, but they didn't. The physics are just completely broken. Like, you can run down a steep hill for like 30 minutes, and then when you hit the small incline at the bottom, you won't even make it to the top. I swear, they put some kind of speed cap on him, because unless you spin dash, the fastest you can go is like a mild pace. I think all of my problems with these levels are pretty much summed up in the 28th level. There are just so many annoying level gimmicks like these missiles and the circle spin things. I never really liked these in the classic games, but at least in those games, it made sense that you would have to build momentum before being able to do a full rotation on these things. But in this level, Sonic just latches onto them like he's Spider-Man. Worst of all, this level has an auto-scrolling section. Like, the first thing that should be said in the meeting room when they are coming up with a new Sonic game is no auto-scrolling. Then right at the end, the game wants you to outrun these missiles, but I swear Classic Sonic just doesn't go fast enough to do that unless you spin dash. But there is no indicator that shows you should do that. Also, that's just a dumb level element. When comparing these levels directly, Sonic Colors definitely wins. While Sonic Forces doesn't have the forced filler levels like Colors, I would argue that the classic Sonic and Avatar stages pretty much make up for that. Sonic Colors has way higher highs than Sonic Forces does. The best levels in Forces are about as good as some of the more meh levels in Sonic Colors. There were definitely some enjoyable sections in Sonic Forces, but they just can't make up for the rest of the game. I think Forces could have been a lot better if there were more modern Sonic stages, along with fleshing out the avatar a lot more, and classic Sonic should just be completely cut. But while not as important as the levels themselves, the setting is in my opinion a very important aspect of what makes a game stand out. Despite some of my gripes with Sonic Colors, I absolutely love how the game looks. It takes you through some of the most interesting places in any Sonic game ever. Every stage is so bright and colorful, yet all still feel like they are a part of this giant space amusement park. Starlight Carnival is one of my least favorite worlds level design wise, but one of my favorites when you are talking about looks. The almost endless amount of ships that you are constantly bouncing between is just so amazing until you go inside, but that's beside the point. It is just crazy how wonderful these levels look, especially considering that they were originally made on a repackaged GameCube. While I don't necessarily like all of the Wisp power-ups, I do like their designs, and the idea of Eggman going from capturing small animals to small aliens is pretty fun. The story itself is really boring, and I skip most of the cutscenes. Same goes for Forces though, so I won't harp on it too much. In Forces, I like how these levels look. The rest I don't really care for. The jungle levels are definitely the most visually interesting with the trees and bright neon lights everywhere. Sunset Heights is also pretty cool, especially when you can see the giant Death Egg robots in the background, but most of the other stages are just reused from older games. We've got Green Hill, Chemical Plant, and Death Egg. I will say that there is one chemical plant stage that looks really cool during this outdoor section, but then you go inside and it looks exactly like 3 other levels in this area. These stages don't look awful, but can be pretty boring and kind of support my biggest problem with this game. In my opinion, nothing is less interesting than just a bunch of the same ideas you've seen time and time again. This game barely has an identity of its own because most of the game's ideas are just taken from older games. The stages are taken from the Genesis games, classic Sonic is here like in Generations, and we have the Wisps like in Colors. I feel like I could find myself having more fun with this game if I was at least seeing new things, but instead this game is just full of old ideas that were executed better in the original games they were from. The main thing that I even remember this game for is the custom avatar, and honestly, customizing your character is way more fun than anything else in the game. Overall, I feel that Sonic Colors definitely beats Sonic Forces in this department simply because it was just original. Sonic Forces could have easily beaten Colors because some parts of this game look really pretty, but I think that because Forces just reuses so much from older games, it makes the game sort of lack its own identity, which I think is really sad. Colors is still pretty low on the list for me when it comes to what Sonic games I find fun, but I can still respect the game because it has so much of its own identity to it. You ask me to think of Asteroid Coaster and I will immediately know what game you are talking about. You ask me to think of Green Hill and I'm going to ask you which game. After replaying both of these games, I have still come to the conclusion that neither of them are necessarily games that I love, but if you ask me which one is better, I'm going to have to say Sonic Colors. While the game's level design has some pretty low lows, it also has some pretty good highs with levels that I genuinely wouldn't mind coming back to every once in a while. The theming is also some of the most unique and creative I've ever seen in a Sonic game, and even if I don't enjoy the levels themselves, I can still enjoy how they look. Sonic Forces can look good at times, but the level design just never gets as good as some of the better levels in Colors. While Colors is better in my opinion, both games just don't necessarily offer what I value in a Sonic game. If you enjoy either of these games, that's great, and I'm glad you were able to get enjoyment out of something that I can't. But I think that's something that everyone can agree on is that these games literally have the same final boss, like what happened here.